The story you're about to hear is true. The names have been changed. I'm Ty Bogan, criminal defense attorney with over 20 years of courtroom experience in California. I've handled hundreds of cases, and some of them stay with you, not because of the verdict, but because of everything that happened before it. This is one of those cases.
Put yourself in the driver's seat for a second. It is 4:05 in the morning.
Oh man, that is early.
Right, brutally early. You are on an unincorporated two-lane stretch of road in Stanislaus County, California. And it is raining. It's about 51 degrees out.
Cold, wet, and I'm guessing pitch black.
Total darkness. There are zero streetlights out there. The darkness outside your windows is just absolute. You're just trying to get to work, you know?
Yes, just gripping the steering wheel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Squinting through that rhythmic sweep of the windshield wipers, entirely focused on just staying in your lane. And I want you to imagine your absolute worst-case scenario on that kind of daily, mundane commute.
Well, for the vast majority of us, the brain immediately jumps to mechanical failures, right?
Yeah, like what?
Like a blown tire at 60 miles an hour in the pitch black, or hitting a patch of standing water and hydroplaning into a ditch. We always think of a momentary loss of physical control over the car.
Totally. But today, we are digging into a stack of sources that outline a scenario that goes so unimaginably far beyond a blown tire. It's something that shatters an entire life in a fraction of a second.
It really is a terrifying thought.
We are looking at the real-life case of Danny Reyes and Carol Briggs in this deep dive.
Yeah.
Our focus here is the agonizing collision between a tragic accident, a deeply embedded biological panic response, and the incredibly strict, unyielding boundaries of the law.
And it is a profound case study, really,
Yeah.
because it forces you to confront the massive gap between human psychology and legal responsibility.
Yeah.
The stakes of this entire story revolve around one singular, irreversible choice made in a matter of seconds. Basically, the choice to stay or the choice to leave.
And what happens next completely defies standard expectations. It shows us the relentless machinery of our justice system, but also reveals this remarkably unexpected well of human empathy.
It's a heavy one.
It is. So to really grasp the shock of what happens out there in the dark, we have to start by understanding the human beings involved before the impact, because the aftermath only makes sense if you know the life of the person behind the wheel.
Yeah, context is everything here.
Exactly. So in November 2022, Danny Reyes was 25 years old. He was a blue-collar union construction worker, specifically installing rebar for a company called Coastal Ironworks.
And we need to contextualize what that actually means for his daily reality. Like, this wasn't a casual 20-minute drive to a nice office park.
No, not at all.
Danny's routine was notoriously grueling. He lived in Modesto, but his job site was all the way in the Bay Area.
Oh, wow. That is quite the haul.
Yeah, that translates to hours in the car each way every single day. He would wake up, leave his house before 4 in the morning, pick up his cousins so they could split the driving, and just do back-breaking manual labor from before the sun came up until well after it went down.
So he's really doing the grind. He's doing everything society tells a young man to do to support his family, and he is doing it the hard way.
100%.
And the most crucial detail here, reading through our sources, is that he had a spotless record. Like, absolutely no criminal history.
None at all.
Not a single prior offense. He had never been in trouble with the law a day in his life. He is basically the very definition of a regular guy just trying to make a living.
Right. Then we arrive at November 7, 2022. It's 4:05 a.m. Danny is driving his 2003 silver Dodge Dakota pickup truck.
Just a standard Tuesday morning for him.
Exactly. He has driven this exact stretch of road hundreds, maybe thousands of times. And on a road like that, in freezing rain and total darkness,
Your brain is simply not anticipating a pedestrian.
it's just not. But someone is out there. A 51-year-old woman named Carol Briggs is walking along the west shoulder of the road. And according to the investigation details in our sources, she steps out from the west shoulder, heading toward the east shoulder. She steps into the roadway at the precise moment Danny's truck is approaching.
Oh my God. So there's just zero time to react.
None. The left front of his truck strikes her, throwing her onto the roadway.
It's just a nightmare scenario.
First responders ultimately arrive and pronounce her dead at the scene at 4:25 a.m. But in the immediate chaotic seconds following the impact, Danny does not pull over.
Wait, really?
Yeah. He does not reach for his phone to call 911. He experiences this overwhelming psychological shock. He steps on the gas and he leaves her there in the dark.
Okay, let's unpack this. because we really need to understand what is actually happening in a human brain during a moment like that.
It's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we all harbor this fantasy that our brains are these hyper-rational supercomputers, right? We assume that in a life or death emergency, we'll just calmly process the data, logically assess the ethics of the situation, and take the correct moral action.
Which is almost never what actually happens.
Exactly. Reading through these sources, it feels more like someone yanking the power cord out of that supercomputer. It's like the brain forcibly reboots into a primal safe mode, where all your complex moral software is just completely inaccessible.
Safe mode is a really good way to put it.
Right, because he's a good guy who makes a devastatingly bad decision in 3 seconds.
That safe mode analogy gets right to the neurological mechanism at play here. When you experience a sudden traumatic shock, your amygdala...
Which is the threat detection center.
Yes, exactly. It essentially hijacks your nervous system. It floods your body with adrenaline and cortisol. In that state, the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain responsible for complex decision-making, logic, and contemplating future consequences,
It shuts down.
it drastically reduces its functioning. Evolutionary biology takes over, basically screaming, threat, escape, survive.
Wow. So if his brain is essentially offline and functioning purely on survival instinct, how does the law treat that? Like, does the justice system recognize a biological panic attack?
It absolutely does not.
Really? Not at all.
No, the legal system draws a very hard, inflexible line separating psychological shock from legal responsibility. Biology might explain the panic, but the law dictates that fleeing a scene is a calculated, illegal action.
That is harsh.
It is. Your prefrontal cortex might be suppressed, but the statute remains fully active.
Man, that sets up the most brutal irony of this entire deep dive. Because when we move from the blinding panic of the accident into the cold, calculated light of the police investigation, the investigators uncover something completely shocking.
Yeah, this part is wild.
Danny ran from a crime he didn't actually commit.
Right, because the scene investigation was incredibly thorough. Officers determined that Carol Briggs had violated the state vehicle code.
By stepping into the dark roadway outside of a crosswalk.
Yes, she failed to yield the right-of-way to vehicles. And on top of that, the coroner's toxicology report later revealed she had a controlled substance in her system at the time of the crash.
Which means the investigator looks at the scene, does the physics math, and officially concludes that Carol stepping into the roadway caused the crash.
Exactly. The crash was not Danny's fault. He physically could not have stopped his truck in time, regardless of how fast his reflexes were.
So behind the wheel, in the moments leading up to the impact, Danny did absolutely nothing wrong.
Nothing. He was driving legally, but in the moments immediately after the impact, he violated one of the most uncompromising laws on the books.
So what does this all mean? I really want to challenge the logic of this.
Sure.
If an investigator confirms that Danny did nothing wrong to cause the harm, the simple act of his tires rolling away from the scene instantly turns him into a felon. That feels profoundly counterintuitive to how we normally think about guilt and innocence in society.
It definitely does.
Because we naturally equate being a criminal with being the person who caused the destruction. If he didn't cause it, why is it a severe crime to leave?
What's fascinating here is that it feels counterintuitive until you examine the societal mechanism behind the law. The legal system operates on the principle that in a life or death emergency, assigning blame is a luxury that just has to wait.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, the preservation of human life is the absolute priority. The law we are talking about, California Vehicle Code 2001A.
Which requires anyone involved in a collision with an injury to stop and help.
Right. To stop, identify themselves, and render aid. It creates a mandatory duty to rescue. It completely supersedes the question of fault.
Because I guess if the law allowed people to flee based on their own subjective belief that they weren't at fault, you would just have total chaos. Drivers would be playing judge and jury in their own heads while victims bled out on the asphalt.
Precisely. The law demands an almost impossible standard of accountability in an emergency to prevent societal abandonment. Fleeing the scene is a separate, independent felony because you are robbing the victim of their chance at survival.
And robbing the system of its ability to establish the truth.
Exactly.
If you're listening to this right now, let that sink in. This is arguably the single most critical legal lesson you need to understand as a driver. Even if someone literally falls out of the sky onto your hood and it is 100% their fault.
The moment you leave the scene, you transform a tragic accident into a felony.
Which is tragically the exact threshold Danny crossed. And once he crossed it, the consequences began closing in on him almost instantly.
They really did.
So if the law demands accountability, how does it enforce it when someone seemingly just vanishes into the dark? Reading the details of this hit-and-run investigation is like taking a masterclass in modern police work.
It really is. It highlights how investigations operate on dual tracks today. You have the analog world of physical debris and the invisible digital web we all leave behind.
The digital footprints.
Yeah. So at the physical scene, officers found broken pieces of a headlight lens. By examining the manufacturer's molding marks on the plastic, they quickly identified that the lens belonged specifically to a 1997 to 2004 Dodge Dakota.
That is incredibly specific.
Yeah.
So they have the make and model right away. Next, they start pulling surveillance video, right?
Yeah. A camera from a nearby convenience store catches a silver gray small pickup truck driving past right after the crash timeframe. Its left front headlight is visibly smashed.
Ooh.
And then a second camera at a nearby auto shop catches the same truck turning down a side street. But the cameras are grainy. There is no visible license plate in either video.
So they have a highly specific vehicle profile, but absolutely no suspect to attach it to.
Right. So the California Highway Patrol utilizes the community. 2 days after the crash, on November 9th, they put out a public appeal on social media asking anyone with info about a silver 1997 to 2004 Dodge Dakota with left front damage to come forward.
And the very next day, November 10th, the analog and digital tracks collide. The owner of a local tow company calls the CHP. He tells them a guy just called his shop looking to buy a left front fender and a hood for his silver Dodge Dakota.
What are the odds?
Seriously. And crucial to the investigation, the tow yard owner has caller ID. He gives the police the phone number.
And this is where we see the mechanics of a modern digital dragnet. Law enforcement takes that single phone number and runs it through their databases. It instantly links back to Danny Reyes at an address in Modesto.
Wow. Just like that.
Yeah. A quick DMV check confirms Danny is the registered owner of a 2003 Dodge Dakota. Investigators even pull up Google Maps Street View for his address, and sitting right there in the historical image is a silver Dodge Dakota parked in front of the house.
It is terrifyingly efficient how connected all these data points are.
Yeah.
So the police start doing drive-bys at his house, but the truck isn't there.
Right.
Finally, they knock on the door and speak to Danny's sister-in-law. She admits the truck exists, but claims it's parked over Danny's father's house in a nearby town called Turlock because it's having, quote, engine trouble.
Yeah, and then human error blows the case wide open. While the officers are standing right there on the porch, the sister-in-law calls Danny on her cell phone.
Right in front of the police.
Right in front of them. During the conversation, she starts to mention something about the accident, suddenly catches herself, and awkwardly changes her wording. The investigating officer immediately clocks the slip-up.
That is a massive mistake. So the officers drive straight to the father's house in Turlock, and sure enough, there is the Dodge Dakota.
Sitting right there.
But it has a completely different, mismatched silver hood on it. The left front fender has those bright yellow grease pen markings you see from auto wrecking yards. The broken plastic fasteners from the wheel well are literally sitting in a pile on the front porch.
They didn't even try to hide the repairs very well.
No, they didn't. The police get a search warrant and seize the truck on the spot.
But seizing the truck was really just the physical confirmation. The digital forensics on Danny's phone painted a psychological portrait of the next morning that is incredibly chilling.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, investigators subpoenaed his AT&T cell phone records. They discovered that on the morning of November 8th, just hours after the crash, Danny made 11 different phone calls between 8:41 a.m. and noon. Every single call was to an auto repair shop or a wrecking yard.
Including that fateful call to the tow company.
Exactly.
You know, the cell tower GPS data is what truly stopped me in my tracks.
Yeah.
How exactly do investigators build a minute-by-minute timeline just from cell towers?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it relies on how cellular networks function fundamentally. Your phone is not a passive device. It is constantly reaching out, pinging the nearest cell towers to say, I'm here, route my calls here.
Right.
By measuring the signal strength and the time delay of those pings across multiple tower sectors, network engineers can triangulate a phone's location with astonishing geographic precision.
That is wild. And the timeline they extracted from his phone is haunting. Like, at 3:55 a.m., his phone leaves his neighborhood. At 4 a.m., he's 4 minutes from the crash site.
Tracking his every move.
Yeah. At 4:05 a.m., the exact time of the crash. 2 minutes later, at 4:07 a.m., The phone pings in a residential neighborhood just southeast of the scene.
And investigators deduce that 4:07 a.m. ping is the exact moment Danny pulled his truck over to inspect the front-end damage in the dark.
Then, the phone moves toward his coworker's area to pick him up. And at 5:58 a.m., the phone is pinging at the Coastal Ironworks job site in the Bay Area.
Unbelievable.
He didn't go on the run to Mexico. He didn't ditch his identity. He went to work. He spent the entire day installing rebar. Try to imagine the sheer weight of that cognitive dissonance.
It's hard to even fathom.
He is desperately trying to hold on to the repetitive normalcy of his blue-collar routine, pretending it's just a regular Tuesday, while his brain knows with absolute certainty that he just ended a life and his own world is entirely fractured.
The psychological burden of that secret must have been suffocating. But from an investigative standpoint, it highlights a modern truth. You just cannot outrun your own data.
No, you really can't.
Between your cellular triangulation, neighborhood ring cameras, convenience store security feeds, and the analog network of your local community, like that tow yard owner, the web is practically inescapable.
The digital net caught him perfectly.
Yeah.
So now we arrive at the climax of this entire ordeal. The unmovable forensic facts of his flight are about to collide with the very human reality of his remorse inside a courtroom.
Right. The district attorney charged Danny with felony hit and run resulting in death. This is an incredibly severe charge, and state prison was absolutely on the table.
Which is terrifying.
Now, in the vast majority of criminal cases, this is the stage where the defense and the prosecution negotiate. They strike a plea deal behind closed doors, agree on a lesser charge or a specific sentence, and present it to the judge for a rubber stamp.
But the sources note that the DA utterly refused to offer a plea deal here. There was zero negotiation. So Danny's defense team takes a massive, incredibly rare legal gamble. They enter an open plea.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean mechanically in a courtroom? Like, what is an open plea?
An open plea is essentially throwing yourself entirely on the mercy of the court without a net. Danny pled guilty to the felony exactly as charged, with absolutely no promises of leniency or guaranteed reductions.
Oh, wow.
He bypassed the prosecutor entirely and handed his ultimate fate, his physical freedom, over to the absolute discretion of one single person sitting on the bench.
That is a terrifying prospect in the modern penal system.
It really is. They were betting everything on mitigation.
And the mitigation they presented was really powerful. It wasn't just his clean criminal record or the stack of character letters from his union brothers talking about his work ethic. It was his visible, broken demeanor in the courtroom.
Yeah, he was clearly devastated.
He blamed himself entirely for her death, even though the police report clearly exonerated his driving. The remorse wasn't a legal strategy, it was palpable. But the most stunning element of this entire deep dive came from the victim's side of the courtroom, Carol Briggs's own family.
Which is just incredible. Despite the immense raw grief of losing their sister, they demonstrated a capacity for grace that is profoundly rare to witness in the justice system.
Absolutely rare.
They sat in that courtroom, they looked at Danny, and they recognized that they were not looking at a malicious monster. They were looking at a panicked 25-year-old kid whose biology betrayed his morality in the dark, leading to a terrible, irreversible mistake.
We consume so much true crime media where the narrative is exclusively about vengeance, right? It's always about seeking maximum retribution and locking someone away forever.
Almost always.
It takes an unfathomable level of emotional intelligence for a grieving family to look at the man who left their loved one on the road and advocate for human grace. They explicitly told the judge that while they wanted accountability, they did not want to see Danny's life destroyed in a state prison.
This raises an important question about the nature of justice itself. What actually is justice here? Was justice going to be served by the rigid letter of the law, which demanded a harsh prison sentence to punish the felony of fleeing?
Or was true restorative justice, better served by the human empathy demonstrated by the victim's family and ultimately by the judge?
Because the judge absorbed all of it. He looked at the inflexible laws, the digital data, the panic, and the family's grace.
And the verdict. The judge sentenced Danny to a couple of months of local jail time and 2 years of formal probation. He bypassed state prison entirely.
Now, Danny did not escape consequences. He is a convicted felon, he served time behind bars, and he will carry the psychological weight of Carol Briggs' death for the rest of his life. But the court gave him a chance to rebuild.
Right.
Legally, the takeaway from this deep dive is absolute. If you are driving, always stay at the scene. Call 911, render aid. You can sort out the fault, the insurance, and the liabilities in the daylight.
But leaving the scene is an action that permanently alters your legal reality.
Exactly. It can never be undone.
Morally, I think the larger takeaway is about the terrifying fragility of a normal life. You can do everything right. You can wake up at 4 in the morning, work a grueling blue-collar job, provide for your family, and keep your record entirely clean.
But human biology is fundamentally incompatible with the rigidity of human law.
Yeah. It makes you wonder if you were suddenly plunged into the freezing dark, staring at the absolute worst moment of your life, how much of your entire future would hinge on the single, terrified choice you make in the next 5 seconds.